And now you know the rest of the story.
Well, if you guys can see me, I'm sure everybody recognizes the 4640. It's spring cleaning time. You know, right? You've heard me talk about it for the last few videos now. Ugh. Oh. But there's always it's a good practice to have whenever you're changing the oil in anything, especially in an operation where there's multiple people around. Even when you're right here and doing what I'm doing right now, I'm dropping the oil out of the 46 and I'm planning on changing the filters and getting oil back in it yet tonight. But it is also a very good practice to pull the key out of it. Typically I put it on the dash or on the seat. There's 3 of us here. Dad, Ryan, myself, that have the real authority to move any of this equipment around here when it comes to any of the tractors, the semi, the gators, kind of a free-for-all. But when it comes to this larger stuff, when it comes to moving it, there's only 3 people that really have any rights to even get in it and start it. And anybody that is getting in that's not 3 of us and moving it, by rights, they don't have any right to really even be doing it. It's a spoken, unspoken rule around here. We've said it years before. It's something they really ran across you up at school at John Deere Ag Tech School, was to pull the key out of a piece of equipment regardless if you're going to be there or not. Largely because when there's people around, if you have your back to it or whatever else like that, and they need to move it out of the way to move another piece of equipment in or out of the shop, and they don't see anything that would indicate that the tractor doesn't have any oil in it, you're going to be at fault, and you're going to be the one that's going to be getting screamed at because that person just ruined a tractor motor because you had the oil out of it and you didn't take the proper precautions to make sure that nobody was going to jump in it and start it. I've heard of a few horror stories of people doing that. I've heard of a cool story, although not really, of a local that he started as his hired hand. The farmer dropped the oil out of his 4020, was going to change the oil out of it, left, go get the filters. Hired hand didn't see that the guy had dropped the oil out of it, pulled the 4020 out, which was hooked onto the grain mixer, the feed mill, and he went and mixed feed for an hour. And that tractor ran that whole hour without giving any issues. And the guy took it back and backed it in the shed. And it wasn't until the farmer owner came back and saw the tractor was moved, he started to question the worker, the hired hand, about why the tractor was moved. And lo and behold, that he got away with mixing feed. And in turn, the farmer ended up spinning around and doing an engine overhaul. So, something that is just good practice around here, and all 3 of us are aware of it. If the key is out of the ignition, don't start it. Between the 3 of us, I mean, there's nobody else really involved in the operation right now. I mean, unless we have kids, grandkids that get up to age where they're able to help. But it is a known rule around here between Dad and Ryan and I that if the key is on the seat, if the key is out of the ignition, you sure as hell shouldn't be starting it. And haven't had any instances where we've had any close calls or anything else like that. It's just an unspoken rule. A lot of it is just trusting the people that you work with and trusting that they understand the do's and the don'ts around here. It's when you start incorporating new people, hired help, strangers, extended family that isn't exactly around that much, or doesn't have an active role in the farm that does come around, and anything else like that. It's people like that you have to be concerned about, that wouldn't think twice about just grabbing the key off the seat and starting the machine up. We do take safety pretty serious around here. Granted, there's some things that people see that think we're crazy or we should be getting in trouble for. Probably the biggest thing would be using the skid steer for raising and lowering us at different heights and levels around here, but I know the skid steer is dangerous, but myself, I'm not so scared about being on top of the bucket or on top of the loader when it's raised up in the air. Honestly, I'm more concerned about being under it when it's up in the air and getting crushed. Farmer just a few miles up the road here, as I was growing up, he got crushed by the booms of the skid steer. He got hung up his pant leg or something got hung up when he was going to climb out, and it was, I don't know if it was a mechanical failure or what, but the booms dropped on him, supposedly agonizingly slow, and there's nothing he could do about it. So he had plenty of time to think about what was about to happen. Don't get me wrong, I've had plenty of accidents myself around here, stuff that it's kind of hard to avoid, just general things. I hit, probably the worst is going to be hitting my leg with a chainsaw. Freak accident. There was tension on a barbed wire fence when I was cutting a tree off of it, and the tree sprung, the fence sprung, the chainsaw sprung. Luckily enough for me, fortunately enough for me, I was able to hit the chain brake, and the chain quit moving, but just the teeth and everything running across my leg, even though they were stopped, it cut my leg open down to the bone. I got a bone spur. I can literally feel something in my leg. To this day, if I kneel on it, basically at all, it feels like I got a hot knife or nail shoved through my leg. And that's something I'm going to have to live with for probably the rest of my life, because that happened back in, oh gosh, spring of 2011, and really didn't slow me down much. I mean, for the rest of the day I was kind of slow, but I tried to keep it from Grandpa. And the thing with my chainsaw scar, it was right in the front of my leg. I did that at 6 o'clock in the morning on, was it April Sunday? Easter Sunday? Sounds about right. And went home, cows were out, tree fell on the fence, went out, got the cows back in. Ryan went along the rest of the stretch of the fence and was checking it. I went ahead and started to cut the tree off the fence. Like I just said, chainsaw inadvertently hit me in the leg, caused some serious damage. I was able to walk away from the fence. Ryan heard it. I didn't yell or nothing like that, but I was starting to crawl my way back. I can't say crawl. I was walking, but I was able to limp my way back to the mule at the time. And Ryan come back. He says, "Did you hit yourself?" Yeah. Well, the thing is, with the injury on my jeans, you couldn't see the extent of the damage to my leg. Yeah, there's bone showing and everything else like that, and it was bleeding pretty good. Probably not as much as the nail to the foot. I shoved a nail through my foot about 3/4 of the way down at probably one of my upcoming videos here, and that bled like a stuck hog. That hurt like right now. Don't get me wrong, the chainsaw incident hurt, but there was a delayed reaction there. I think there was a sudden rush of adrenaline, and I ended up going to the hospital. I got 9 stitches on the inside, internal. I had 13 stitches on the outside. Got home by 8. Body slammed the I exaggerate for a fact. Body slammed the lazy boy, kind of sat with my leg up, iced it. Grandpa called me at 10 o'clock. He was feeding silage in the barn here. He came out and was feeding silage. To this day, we really don't know why he was feeding that early when, I mean, chores weren't until 2, but maybe he's just getting excited or what. But he called me up and said he plugged the feeding system. So me and my brother, granted, fresh chainsaw wound, 4 hours earlier, I came back over and Ryan came back over, and we ended up unplugging the feeding system, which in turn resulted in putting a pipe wrench on the top of the conveyor, on conveyor number 1 here, and jumping up and down on it to try to dislodge the chain because it was plugged at the boot, and we were trying to get it spun around. Probably not one of the smartest things that I could have ever done, but when you're really left with no other options, and when Ryan had his hands full trying to keep the chain on and tearing it apart, and yeah, farmers, ranchers, yeah, we're a different breed. And don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from my construction workers or anything else like that, mechanics, but the problem is when it comes to a lot of this farming stuff, like milking cows, when you're injured, and it's kind of hard to replace you. I got lucky a couple times in the 4 years that I was milking. I got sick bad enough to the point where I couldn't hardly walk. I don't know if it was the flu or what. Just, you had completely drained energy. You try to sit up, and there's no strength in your muscles to even lift yourself up. And I was pretty bad there for about 2 days, and I was lucky enough Dad and Ryan could do chores for me as far as milk, and then Grandpa helped with chores. He fed silage and did all the milk house chores and everything else like that up until 6 months before he died. So Grandpa was still a very active part of the operation until then. And the thing about my chainsaw injury, I tried to keep that a secret. I didn't want Grandpa to find out. I didn't want Grandpa, either of them to know, because I was kind of serious. And leave it to the cows to kind of expose me. Putting the cows in, and a cow swiped me with her foot. Not hard. I don't even know if she was trying to kick me. I don't know if she was just shaking her leg out or what, but she caught my chainsaw scar, and she dropped me like a bag of bricks, like right now. And Grandpa was trying to figure out, just because he saw her, that she didn't really hit me that hard, and he was wondering why I was on the ground. And he found out, bleeding through my pant leg, that I was hurt a little bit worse than what he realized. So I don't know, the things you do to try to keep your grandparents from getting worked up that you're hurt, but oh well, I survived, right? Okay, the oil I think should be pretty well drained out of this. I just thought I'd give a quick safety lesson on safety around here. It's hard to stay safe on an operation, on a farm, on a ranch, blah, 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 blah. Same thing with tagging cows right now. I hope by now Ryan has said that Ryan's got some calves, or a calf. I hope I'm not taking that away from him, but I really don't like talking about anything Ryan hasn't talked about yet. But that is another one as far as making sure somebody's around when it comes to tagging calves. I've done it by myself. Dad, Ryan, we've all done it by ourselves. No big deal. The big thing that I told Ryan with these new cows of his is that they're new to us. We're not familiar with them. They're not familiar with us. And one of his new cows dropped a calf here earlier, and he wanted to get it tagged. And I really made it clear to him when we brought them home, is we don't want him out there dealing with calves, trying to tag calves by himself, because it's so easy for one of those cows to railroad him. And granted, cell phones are not absolute. I mean, cell phones, they're pretty terrible. I honestly think we were better off when we had buttons. I mean, yeah, these are okay, smartphones, cool, but when you got that touch screen and all that crap, say if Ryan gets pummeled by a cow out there and he's covered in mud and dirt, manure, and his fingers are dirty or wet or anything like that. My problem is I have the fingerprint reader on mine, and it works great. It just doesn't like working when it has any dirt, dust, water, moisture, anything on it. Back when I had a flip phone and flip phones were more prevalent, I think those were a little bit more reliable because you had buttons and you could actually push the buttons to make them work. These things, they don't have them perfected yet. These are not your 911. These are not your foolproof, gonna get you an ambulance cure. It's best just to make sure people know where you're at. Don't really. It's really stupid and I'm a hypocrite because I do it all the time. But as far as people not knowing where you're at or what you're doing, because across all the ground we have, if I go out and get hurt out in the field or the pasture someplace, it could take several hours to find me, Ryan, Dad, if you're not careful. So you really gotta think without your head out your ass or up your ass. So I'll try to keep this PG. So all right, I think the 4640 is looking for her spring oil change. I know everybody's just excited that we're going to be back in the field before too long, and honestly I don't think it's that far away. don't get ahead of me. It's drying up. It's melting. This past week we had, it's doing really, really well at getting the ground dried up, the snow melted off. Last night's video, if you guys had watched that at all, I'm really thinking about going out and checking fence, and in like another day or two. I was thinking maybe next week, but assuming we don't get a bunch of rain or anything else like that and gets everything all mudded up again and we can get around with the gator, probably going to start hoofing it a little bit and start checking some fences, because by the end of the first week of April, it'd be really nice to be done checking fence. Not saying it's going to happen, but say plans are not absolute, especially on a farm. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Take care. Take it easy. Keep in touch. Stay dry. I mean, I'd say stay warm, but stay cold. I don't know. We're in the 40s and 50s right now, and after all these months of single digit and temperatures in the teens, I can deal with this, no problem. I mean, it's almost sweatshirt weather. I could probably lose a layer. So, all right, I'll talk to you guys later.